Hey YouTube, this is the Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me. We're talking about nuts right now. It's the time of the year that the nuts are starting to fall. They're just starting to drop. It's been about the last 1 to 2 weeks. They've just been starting to drop in low volume. It's still a little early. We probably have another few more months before they really start to really come down full force. But and depends on where you live and what kind of trees you have. It could be persimmon trees. It could be walnuts like these. Acorns, there's a variety of acorns. Whatever nuts that you have, it may be something that you can want to consider this year to harvest them. You may want to set some aside for the local wildlife, maybe the deer or the squirrels. That's totally cool too. That's what I kind of typically do, is that I typically gather all the nuts that I can, and then I take about a third of them, and then I give them back to the animals. And or I just don't actually harvest the full amount on the ground. But this is the first year that I'm going to try to, to be a little bit more mindful and to be a little bit more, geared toward gathering. And so I just had a big handful of raw walnuts that I just ate, and wow, very fresh. And they definitely have a different taste. When you get so used to dried walnuts or roasted walnuts, man, when you have fresh walnuts, it's definitely a different taste, but very good. Now, in terms of like your acorns, for example, the white acorns are the least bitter, and then you have like the red and brown acorns. Typically what I have around here, it seems like a lot of them are either red or brown. You can even see on my hands the walnut. The walnuts really do stain you pretty good. It's a brown yellow type of stain. That would also be a very good camouflage if you ever needed it. Walnuts and persimmons. But in terms of acorns, they have this thing called tannin. We talked about it once or twice before. Tannin is a very a bitter taste that's in the actual acorns. And your red and brown acorns are going to be or even black acorns are going to be the most bitter. The white acorns are less bitter, but you still would want to soak them. And that's what the Native Americans did. They would soak them in cold water for 2 to 3 days, sometimes even put them in a little basket or pouch and put them in a moving cold stream, fast water, stream. And they would it would leach out, the tannin leaches out. You can also boil them. Boil them a couple times and just put fresh water and boil them again. It takes 2 to 3 times typically when you're boiling these to get all the tannin out. The deer, they love the white acorns because they're the less bitter. But in terms of what you can do with these is not only just roast them, and have roasted acorns, which is awesome, but you could also grind them down into a flour to make breads and other types of pastries or bakery items. And you could also make, and this is what happened during the Civil War, they got so low on their coffee, they actually made acorn coffee, among other different types of coffees as well. But the acorn is very awesome. And so this year I'm going to do a lot more things with my acorns. I just happen to have a lot of acorn trees. And actually I have a lot of walnut trees too, more than I thought actually. Last year I thought I knew, I thought I knew where they all were, but when you have a larger piece of property, it's kind of hard sometimes to know everything. And so I've been really paying attention. I even got my binoculars out last night before the sun got too low and just started to check out all the canopies in the area on my property. And I found a lot of trees loaded with walnuts. It's a little harder to see the acorns, though. They camouflage in so well with leaves, so they're a little harder to see. But so just as a heads up, if you're a prepper or survivalist and you just kind of wanted to get like a test run, if you had to kind of live a little bit more off the land, or if you had to subsidize maybe some of your rations a little bit more of things off the land, this is a good way to test it by going ahead and collecting and seeing what kind of bounty that you can actually harvest. Once again, you may not want to harvest all of it because the local wildlife sometimes, depends on some of this for various stores of fat and protein and even carbohydrates. So you don't want to totally strip the entire environment of all the nuts. But at the same time, you might want to gather enough so that you can get an idea of what's really there available for you. So if you ever had to start to rely on it, you would know what it could yield. As always, thanks for watching. I hope that you you do have some tree nuts in your area. And even if you don't have tree nuts, maybe be able to go to like a local park and see if it's allowed to maybe gather a few of them up there, or a local forest. Some of those have regulations you're not allowed to do that. Some of them don't really care. Even if you don't have trees as well, maybe a neighbor that has a larger piece of property and has a few trees, and they just throw these nuts away. Maybe you say, hey, every week can I come over and gather up those nuts and process them yourself? And so you help your neighbor out by cleaning his yard off, and you help yourself because you have more, nutrition, more calories. So, yeah, I mean, I tell you one thing though is that a lot of people do kind of wait on these walnuts to let them kind of dry or cure a little bit longer than eating them fresh like I did. They are kind of a booger, man, to get into. You got this outer layer, which isn't that bad though. They're kind of like, these are so fresh, they're soft. And so you can just pretty much take a rock and peel that right off, that outer layer. It's the hard layer underneath of it is a real booger, man. Even with rocks pounding, I end up taking a screwdriver and just tapping it and using it as a chisel to kind of get into it. And then eventually it'll just kind of break right in half. But then you have the task of trying to get all that walnut out, because it's all, it's kind of twisty-turny. It's kind of all intermingled into that nut. So not the easiest thing to harvest, to be honest with you. But man, this has a lot of nutrients, packed with a lot of protein and some energy too. So it's all good. It's good to have a diversified amount of nuts. And there's a lot of people who actually plant nut trees for this reason, just like they would plant orchards, and of course grow their own gardens, and actually have even more redundancies, like do seed sprouting and raise livestock. So you can do a very large medley of things to get yourself a wide range of nutrients to make sure to guarantee that you'll get all of your amino acids to create a complete protein and to have enough carbs and enough nutrients to get you through hard times. Everyone be safe, and I'll catch you soon.